Hey everybody, if you are a fan of the channel, you know that every year I put out my American Ninja Warrior Game of the Year. And as you can tell, Cartographers is going to be my Game of the Year, and specifically the big box with all the different maps. Every single map is going to matter here because I will rank them all. I am going to tell you which map I want to play the most and which map I'm going to wait a little bit longer to return to. So what makes this Cartographers my Game of the Year for American Ninja Warrior? A couple of reasons. So I think that there are several things that line up with the American Ninja Warrior system. The first of which is that there are several obstacle courses that players have to go through in Ninja. In this, I've got the base map, the second base map, then I've got 6 different maps that have different cards and different components, different obstacles and different goals. So that means that you're going through qualifiers, then you're going to Mount Midoriyama. You're doing like stage 1 all the way to stage 4. Every single time you run, it's going to be a different course and it's going to have you do different things. So for me, if I were to play through all the maps, that's going to be a whole season of American Ninja Warrior. The other thing that really makes me feel like that Cartographers has this connection to American Ninja Warrior is the kind of obstacles or grading system. So in this game, in Cartographers, you have different years or seasons. You're going to have an A, B, C, and D, and these are each going to have one different goal, and you're going to be scoring A and B in the first season. Then you're going to score B and C. Then you're going to score C and D. And in the 4th round, you're going to score A and D. So what that means is you've got 4 different types of cards. And these types of cards are going to be related to the green trees in this case. So for one season of American Ninja Warrior, your green trees could be your grip strength. And in this case, it's always going to be some card related to the forest. So you've got Deep Wood for 1 year. The next year, it's going to be Heart of the Forest. And you're going to be playing each game of Cartographers slightly different, but it's still got the same vibe. It's still got the same feel. You know, it's going to be Tree Tower or Fawn Lost Thicket. You're going to have something that is related to this and scoring in a slightly different way. So that could be this. The next one you could do is perhaps this is like the desert. You've got the desert and the water together. This is maybe like your balance obstacle in American Ninja Warrior. There's always a balance obstacle. And in this case, maybe it's the rolling logs. You've got the golden granary. This is always about something related to those two. And in this case, it's related to the ruins. Maybe it's this one. I don't know how to say that. Yorickburg, perhaps that's what it's called. So you have a particular kind of obstacle that just gets replaced with a different thing, but every time you do it, it's the same category. That's what this game offers, is you've got a category of types of buildings that you're drawing on your map, and that's what American Ninja Warrior has. So that is the other connection that I see when it comes to what Cartographers has that also American Ninja Warrior has. Yet again, another thing. There is in the expansion, this kind of like big box, the collector's edition. They give you crayons. They give you colored pencils. Now these are folded in half because that's the only way they fit in my box with all the expanded games that the boards that I have. But this has the colors. You've got your blue, yellow, purple, green, and red. Those are your 4 colors plus your monster color. And the base game comes with pencils. Now you can play with pencils and you can just draw the shapes in. So you've got squiggle lines, you've got straight lines, you've got trees, you've got houses. But I would say that when it comes to like flair, American Ninja Warrior, you can see those competitors. And they've got a lot of flair, they got a lot of personality, they kind of showboat. That's the colored pencil, folks. That's my husband. He's the showboater when it comes to Cartographers. He absolutely detests when he has to pass his page to me and I draw monsters on his board and my monsters look like trash. I try really hard, but they don't look as good as his because he's more artistic than I am. So then, he kind of is like, ugh, and he tries to like beautify them and I let him do it. But I'm kind of like, hey, those monsters are little nasty critters and you got to leave them the way they look. Because that's kind of the game. It's part of the game is swapping your board whenever the monsters, their creatures come up and somebody has to kind of mess with your strategy and fill in spaces in your board. And of course, it always throws a wrench in your plans. But if you want to showboat, you can. And if you want to be basic, you want to be simple or just color in squares and not draw pictures, you can use pencils or you can just use colors to kind of differentiate the sections. But it doesn't have to be fancy. I'm a non-fancy person, so I will just draw in colors. I like using the colored pencils over the pencils because it does help me see the colors because the cards have the colors on them. And it helps me connect the goals with my board. So I do like doing it. But that's another thing. So the base game, what players are going to do on their turn is they're going to flip over a card from a deck that they have shuffled together. And it's going to have one monster for the first round and one hero if you're playing with the heroes deck, in addition to some of these Temple Ruin cards and other cards that are going to essentially tell you what shape to draw. So you're going to put these cards out, you're going to shuffle them all up like this, and you're going to lay the cards out. Now in the very first season, you're going to see Spring has 8 points worth of cards that you flip over, and you're scoring up A and B at the end of this round. Then you're going to move on to the next round after you've scored, and you're going to go to Summer. Summer is going to score up, in this case, 8. Again, you're going to have 8 points of cards. You're going to score B and C. Then you're going to move on to Fall. Uh-oh, we're getting shorter and shorter. Now we're scoring C and D. And then you're going to move on to the fourth round of the game, and you're only going to be flipping over 6 cards of value and then scoring D and A. So what does cards of value mean? Let me just show you. I'll flip over the first card. Let's say we draw this. You will be picking either to draw yellow, which is the prairie, or the blue, which is water, in a square shape anywhere on your board, and it's worth 2 of those points towards the 8. So once every player simultaneously does this, we then flip the next card over, and we simply layer it on top, and we say, okay, now we're up to 4 points of our 8. You now will draw an L shape, which is the 4 configuration polyomino of either blue or of the red house. And then we'll just keep going, and we'll just add to the next one, and we go, okay, now we're at 5, and you're drawing pasture, and it's going to be a coin and doing this particular shape where you skip one in the middle and draw 2 yellows, or you pick this kind of zigzag shape and draw yellow. And again, you're drawing anywhere you want on your board that's legal, not over any mountain spaces or the kind of dead spaces. And then you're just going to be scoring whatever that scoring card is for A, B at the end of this round. And when you get a monster, you get a critter, you're going to be turning your board over to that person, and you're going to say, okay, Ratman Strike. You pass your card to that direction, left or right, and then they draw that configuration with purple. And at the end of the round, if you have not put any spaces next to, or it's not covered by the edge of the board or a mountain, then every single space that's empty will give you a -1 point. So monsters not only block spaces, but they also are going to give you negative points if you don't surround them or you don't get a hero to kill any of those spaces of the Ratman Strike. So that is going to be the basics of the game and how those particular rounds work and how you flip over those cards. And then I'm going to say the last connection, or maybe the strongest thing, the thing that I'm left with after playing every single game of Cartographers that I see with those athletes and those performers on American Ninja Warrior is these strong emotions with the wins and the losses. When there are successes, the successes are just delicious. They are delightful. When you play it, when you have a card and you say, I could put it here, I could put it here, and you put it in the right spot because the next turn you get to do something even better, and you really bank that turn on your points, it's delightful. It is wonderful. You're like, I did this and I did that, and I'm going to score it again next round because it's the same scoring round for C. It's amazing. But when you do the one or the other, and then the next round, it just gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then you just fail miserably. That can happen in Cartographers, and you can do that. I see Ninja Warriors get stuck in their heads, and they say, oh, I have problems with balance obstacles, and then every year they get to the balance obstacle, and they fall, and then they're just so stuck in their heads they can't get past it. So I see like the emotions are really strong, and sometimes the analysis paralysis can be strong in cartographers, much like I see with the athletes, but the emotions swing so big. I mean, you can have just, again, you can leave the game feeling fantastic, you can leave the game feeling terrible, but the emotions are strong, and they always have been in cartographers for me. That's why I kind of keep it at bay for a while, and then I play again, and then I kind of put it back away again for a while, and then I play it again, because it is a fun challenge and it's a puzzle. And I always see American Ninja Warrior as a puzzle. When I see those ninjas stand at the beginning of the course and I see them like going through their steps and their moves, and they're grabbing things, they're puzzling out how they're going to physically tackle the challenge of getting through every single obstacle and getting to the end, hitting the buzzer. And that's what I want to do here. I want to plan out my turn. I want to see what the moves are. I want to really work it. And so it's just so American Ninja Warrior for me. And I was excited to get through all the maps. Now here's where I want to talk about the different maps, what they offer, and then my ranking system of which map I want to jump into before the others. I'll also talk about some of the mini expansions and the Heroes pack. So buckle in, right? You ready for this? The first map, well, you have your base map, right? So this is going to be your base map. And this is going to be the place that you build on. You've got your mountains, you've got your temple ruins, and it's just a basic board. You can flip this over and it's a different map. You also have, yet again, another different map. This is going to be a different configuration so that you're not always playing the same thing. So these are the basic maps. I did rank the basic maps, so you will know exactly how the basic maps score based on, compared to the other ones. So the first one is Nebulous. This is Plane of Flame. This is going to be, as you see down here, map pack 1. So here is the Nebulous board. And this board has a volcano in the middle, and there are volcano cards that you shuffle into the deck, and you will flip over cards that are not just terrain type or your temple ruins, but they will also be the volcano, and your volcano is going to spill out coming from here or any existing volcano that you've already marked, and it essentially ruins every spot that it touches. So this has a really basic system, but you're in charge of the volcano, unlike the monsters or the critters when you have to give your board to someone else. So that's going to be Nebulous and what that offers. Again, you've got lava or volcano cards that are going to spill out from that, depending on if you draw them or not. But they're all shuffled into the deck. Map 2 is Afro, Plane of Knowledge. This is map 2. And you see here, Afro, Plane of Knowledge. This map looks really different. It's the only one, I believe, that is sideways. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So this is landscape. And what it has are these little sections out here. And you get to start in any one that you want, but if you want to spread out and go to a new island, you have to pay a coin to go over here. And then you have to pay a coin to go to an adjacent island. So you're going to start in a space and then slowly start spreading out, but you can see that they're only connected in this circle. You can't jump from places to places if they don't have a dot. So you're actually going to be spending these coins and then spreading out, which I find fascinating. Okay, so that is going to be Afro. Let's see here. Next up is Undercity Depths of Sabek. This is map pack 3. This totally changes the entire system of cartographers in a radical way. So what you do here is you have to connect everything back to your door. And that means that you can't just go wherever you want. And in the game, you get to place your terrain in any place that you want in the configuration that you select. So this one says, no, you can't. And it really creates a bottleneck around here that I find interesting and fascinating. Feels a little bit more like those you got to connect adjacent orthogonally kind of puzzle games. But this is going to be your Undercity. Okay, that's it. Next one up is called Frozen Expanse, Realm of Frost Giants. Yes, map 4. You can see here we got a nice frozen expanse. And yeah, you better believe it. You got a little frozen lake here. So again, I'm just showing you the first page of each of these. There's always a second side that has a different map configuration that you use the same base rules for. So this one has, as you can see here, this frozen lake, and once you surround it orthogonally, you get 3 coins. And you're going to put that in your coin section down here, and you can see that there's a lot of space for coins because you also have another grading rule, and you'll see it in the score down here. After your first 2 seasons, you are going to be counting 1 point for each space you have covered up with the matching terrain type. And you're going to do that here, and you're going to do that at the end of the game. So you can only place the water here, the trees here, the yellow pampas here, the prairie, and then the house or the red house here. So this has some restrictions on where you place things, but it also gives you bonuses for placing them there. Very, very interesting. You also are going to get 2 ambush cards and 1 hero card with this pack. And I think that's great because you get 2 new ways of having monsters and you get a new hero to add to your hero pack. All right, Thor Step. This is Red Tooth and Gold Belly, map 5. Let's take a look at this. This one has some beacons, and it's really interesting because you are going to have one of 3 cards that you play in addition to your 4 scoring cards, and it's going to tell you how you score these once you have activated it, which is surrounding that beacon with those particular, you're going to light the beacon essentially. And then you're going to have a perimeter that you must fill to hopefully get points, or you might even have some kinds of columns or rows that you score. But you'll see everything else is pretty similar. You've got your mountains, you've got your ruins and things like that. All right, so that's Thor Step. And then lastly, you've got Hornhelm Wasteland Market, which is map 6. So let's take a look at this guy. Here's this one. You've got this, and it's massive. It's really thick. And one of the reasons it's super thick is because you actually take 2 different sheets. You take a market sheet and you take a board sheet. So this one's the only one that doesn't have 2 different configurations, because what you've got here are some of those like wasteland places. You've got your mountains, everything is the same, but you're going to have this backside that tells you what you can actually buy at the market. And that's the most fascinating thing. You've got a journal track at the bottom, and more checks you get, the more victory points you're going to earn at the end of the game. But you have all these different items. You can get any of these 9, and it's going to give you the chance to spend coins. And then it says when you do something, you're going to do something else. So they're always trigger coded. Very interesting. Different amounts of coins that you have to pay, different opportunities to gain those journal track points down here that will get you max points. So that's going to wrap up all of the maps and what they do. So before I rank the maps, I want to talk to you about the skills, which is a mini expansion. Right here, it's the skills mini expansion 2, requires Cartographers heroes, but you have skill cards. These are going to be your skill cards. That's the back side of your skill card, and you're going to shuffle them up and you're going to flip them over, and they're going to have a cost in the corner, and they're going to let you do something. You flip over 3 of these, and they stay out in the middle of the board for the entire game. And every single round of the 4 rounds that you play, every season you play, you can pick one of the 3 cards to activate. And some of them have cost, some of them don't. For example, Sleight of Hand costs 1, and this is always your coins, so instead of getting a point for your coin, you're going to pay it, and then during the draw phase, draw a 3x1 shape instead of one of the available shapes, but of course you have to match the same terrain type. I think this skills expansion is absolutely 100% always going to be a part of every single game I play. I think the skills expansion is fantastic. 5 out of 5. It gives you a choice. And the 3 different cards that you get are different. They're interesting. They cost money, but they're a really great investment, and they might get you out of a pickle. Because if you really need to draw just one shape, or you need to kill something and you just can't seem to get your hero or get a hero card next to it, or surround something, you can draw this hero in, it says during the draw phase, draw this hero adjacent to the drawn shape. You get to draw the shape and draw a hero, and it only costs 1. Really cool. Here, You just get to draw a 1x1 square instead of the available shape, fill it with any non-mountain type. This could get you 7 points. It could get you big points in the game, depending on what that scoring card is. So I think this skills expansion is dynamite. I think it's fantastic. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was heroes. I think heroes is a really interesting way to combat and to include a different type of card that's not a terrain card that helps you fight those monsters, those critters, because they can get a little overwhelming. And so what heroes do is you add them into the game and you will draw them and play them just like this. This is a square where you draw the actual hero. That's where they're standing, and then this is going to be their splatter, their kind of attack zone. And so what it does is it kills existing monsters if they are right there in those spaces, or it protects that space from monsters being activated. So if a monster is in the future drawn in one of those spaces, they just die instantly. So it becomes a preventative measure, or it becomes an offensive measure where you are essentially attacking with the hero because a monster is there. They're really cool. I think they're amazing. Now, I will say though that you can get cluttered with heroes just because of the luck of the draw and not have any of the monsters or the critters come out. And so in that case, it just becomes like your heroes are standing out there and they're not really doing much. And you kind of feel like, oh no, I just don't have anything going on and I sure wish I could use them and fight against the ambush cards. And the other thing could happen too. You play with heroes and then you just keep getting ambushed. But in the base game, you were just ambushed by monsters and there was no way to come back and to have any recourse. So I think adding heroes is always a good step, but I will say that it's kind of a 4 out of 5 for me because I think it's mostly good, but sometimes you can have heroes and you really need them to come out and then they just don't come out, and it's really fun to have them in there, but if they never shuffle in or they never turn over because you've gone through your seasons quickly, then you just don't get a chance to play with them, and so you're kind of like, right? You're kind of like, ah. But there's some really fun heroes that the game adds that I think just make it really fun. Tons of different configurations and different ways of playing. I like this. Chieftain Drenny is one of the expansion. He's one of the ones that came with one of the games. So he's a really cool hero, can be played in a scouted space. He's going to go in the one that has one of those kind of like light drawings in it, the light shaded spaces. So I think Heroes is really good, and I love having the hero cards that I can add in any combination. Some of them are harder than others, and I think it's just whatever you want. Do you want to add the complexity? Do you want to add the fun ones? Do you want to add the basic ones? Do you want to have combination? Just like you do with the ambush cards. So just a lot of possibilities there with the heroes. Okay, so it is time for ranking. I'm so excited. So what I'm going to do is start at the bottom, go all the way to the top, and just briefly explain why it is where it is on my list. So I'm going to start with my number, I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 maps. So I'm going to start with my number 7. This is Thor Step. So the reason why Thor Step, Red Tooth, and Gold Belly is down there at the bottom is mostly because of the beacons. So the beacons are problematic in my opinion because the scale of getting points with the beacons is too big. So if I take a look at those beacon cards, I'm going to show you really what's happening is that there's just too much of a difference between what's going on with one player's board versus the other. So there are 3 of those beacon cards. You've got earning points. You can earn up to 12 points. Here at this card, it's losing 6, and here it's gaining 8. And when I played, it just felt like the person who really cranked on, doing their beacon crushed it. It didn't even matter that there were all those other objectives like the basic core game. None of those seemed to really play into it. And so I felt like the divide between players' scores was too great in Thor Step, and I felt like the obstacles or the challenge of trying to, do the Red Tooth and Gold Belly beacons was too distracting from the core game and just widespread of scoring. So it really wasn't my favorite. That's why it's going to be down there at the bottom. moving on to my number 6, it is Hornhelm, Wasteland Market. And I like the idea of the market because I told you I really like the idea of the skill cards. But with the skill cards, the Wasteland Market didn't necessarily make as much sense. And these cards are going to show up here. You're going to flip them over and they're going to tell you which column or in some cases which row you're going to be able to pick from. And you just flip over a card at the end of 1, 2, and 3. And you're just simply going to check off one of those boxes if you want to pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. And I felt like the scale there, much like the scale in the first game, gets to be too big. So if you get all the way up here to 42 and your opponent gets 3 more and gets to 55, that's 13-point gap. That's kind of not overcomable. It's insurmountable, it feels. And so someone can get really far ahead on that journal track and get pretty fortunate with the decisions they've made. You can invest in something and it just doesn't pan out. Well, then you invested, you lost the coins and the victory points, and then you're not getting the progress on the journal. So I think it just adds a little bit too much, and it kind of separates players, again, a little bit too much. I think it gets away from the core too much. So that's going to be, Hornhelm is going to be down there just above Thor Step. My next game is going to be, this is going to be number 5, is Afro, Plane of Knowledge. So Afro, Plane of Knowledge is going to be that for me because it can be kind of hard. You've got this map and you're moving around and you can find yourself kind of hemmed in. And then you jump over to get to a new place and you're like, new possibilities. This is really, and then a monster comes in and fills in the entire space. And you're like, well, now I can't go around it. I can't surround it and I can't really do anything in that space. And I get a really big, one of those big massive T-shapes. And then I have to go to a new space. And then just barely before I get in there, now I've got to do a ruins and then I can't put a ruins out anywhere. So then, I don't even have if you don't have the coin to go to a new space, all you do for your turn is take a coin. And so it kind of sets you back a little bit. It is interesting. It has some possibilities. I don't dislike it, but I find that you can get really hemmed in with this one. So that's going to be my next one up is Afro, Plane of Knowledge. All right. Moving into my, let's see here, my tops. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be my top 4 out of the 7. So we are going to move on to Undercity, Depths of Sabik. Okay, so the thing that makes this interesting is the restriction. I found it to be interesting, and I think that it really broke Cartographers' rule of placing anywhere you want in an interesting way, because everybody had to succumb to it. So you always had to be connecting from the door to another shape, and then inside of the shapes, then you can start spreading out. I thought that was interesting. Now, it is restrictive, and it is hard when you draw a ruin space at the very beginning and you can't reach them because they're all down here, and you can't do a shape that gets you all the way to any of those shapes. But it's interesting. It has some possibilities. I do like it. I think it's worth trying and worth playing again. So, top 3 now. My third one is going to be Basic map. I didn't have a card for it, but it's just going to be the basic map. So any of those will do. I have 4 of the basic maps like I showed you before. I think the basic map is solid. I think it's something that you can share with people. It's super easy. It's easy to teach and it's really fun. And so it's like, you don't have any fancy things. You can add heroes to it. You can add the skill cards to it, but the map itself is just straightforward. This is just the basic good old Cartographers. I think it actually ranks pretty high compared to all the other maps that they have offered. I actually have 2 maps that I think are above the basic map that I would play and that I think are really fun. So let's go into it. My number 2 is Nebulous, Plane of Flame. One reason why I like Nebulous as my second pick is because the volcano will destroy spaces on your map, but you get to control it. Unlike the ambush from your opponents that you have to turn your card to, this allows you to draw that kind of, destruction, path of destruction in any direction. Yes, it does destroy spaces, even ones you've drawn before, but it's interesting, and it changes up the base game just enough to make it really fun. So you have those lava or those volcano cards, and they're going to essentially kind of ruin. You're going to have like rain of fire in a particular shape. You're going to have seismic tremors in that 2 shape, or you're going to have even bigger, a lava flow. So it's interesting. I like it. I think it's really cool. And that leaves me, of course, with my number 1. This is my favorite map of all, Frozen Expanse, Realm of Frost Giants. So exciting. I liked this for a couple of reasons. So back to this. You draw on these spaces. These are scouting spaces. And so what essentially has happened is you've got scouts before the game who went out and they said, oh, we saw a river this way. We saw a village over here. We saw some forests over this direction. And then you can only put your polyominoes, you can draw them onto your map in those spaces. And then you're also getting points for matching those up at the end of 2 seasons combined. So at the end of here, in first 2 seasons, then you go 2 more and do it again. And then I really like that frozen lake. I love the idea of surrounding it. And it's not so much of an advantage getting 3 coins in 1 round versus the next round if a player gets it 1 turn after you, much like those beacons and those merchant differences happened with the other maps, which is why they ranked a little bit lower. I felt like the chasm or the divide between players and their scores happened so much more in those 2 maps than they did in, say, Frozen Expanse. There's one more card that I really like, and I play with every single time, and it is an expansion. It's called Stone Spine Mountains. I adore it. It gives you a chance to draw a mountain space, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's just cool. And so you get to add mountains to your maps. And I don't play a game without this. I do. Every time I play with this, I really like it. It's much like the skills I play with and with the heroes that I play with. It becomes a mainstay. So that is going to exhaust all the maps. And I'm going to put my list of my favorite maps up again next to my husband's, who played all through every single one of them with me, and you will see which ones we preferred. And I wanted to compare it to yours. Which map have you enjoyed, or which of these maps that I talked about really stands out to you or appeals to you and that you're the most interested in playing? It definitely fits your game style. Put that in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me in my American Ninja Warrior 2024 Game of the Year, Cartographers, all the maps. All right, folks. Bye.